The 2nd of May 2023. You're welcome back. Clear background why we're raising funds of a small amount. Folks, when I speak to people who are given a little money or that, they sometimes didn't quite understand what I'm saying. I want you to leave aside every action in the courts and everything. I want to explain this particular action. Pat Swords, who has put great effort into this, took great risks. He's a chemical engineer who specialises in the preparation of big projects for planning. He would be doing like Food Works, Kerrygold Works, Abbott's. He did ones in America, Heaven Hill Distillery. He would be doing them all over Eastern Europe and Europe itself. He's a reasonably fluent German speaker. The man is a gift to have on our side, and all I try to do is support and give the support. And he rang me a while ago and talked about this, and I was in the courts and everything, and he was saying it's an awful pity we can't fight them on the investment bank, European Investment Bank, and he explained it to me. So this is the situation. The European Investment Bank is set up under a written directive or regulation from the EU. It allows the EU Commission to invest, the bank itself, to recommend money investment. This investment is all going on green stuff, all windmills, all pylons, all stuff, and that's all they believe. It's like a religion to them. I hate to knock any country, but it does appear that when the Germans take a notion on their head, there's no talking to them. They think windmills is going to work. They think solar energy is going to work. They're going for more offshore wind. They're now targeting Ireland. They're targeting Ireland because we have a big coastal line, and Britain is out of the EU. But Britain's still into this green stuff. But they're targeting Ireland, and they're going to put massive amounts of this junk off the coast and throw it on our electricity bills. EirGrid is running amok. I think it's 812 million profits they had last year with your bills. And so we have the highest electricity prices in Europe, and if this goes on, we'll be double the highest electricity prices in Europe. There's no talking to them. Now, in the directive for the investment bank, there is a clause that before any funds can be allocated to various infrastructural projects, it doesn't say energy, it says everything. You could get it technically for any reason, to maybe build a road or, I presume, or build a railway or something like that. But the key to it is the regulation states that before money can be allocated, the project has to comply with European environmental law. I don't know, does it say all European law, but it does specifically say European environmental law. It's the same as when I built my cattle shed in 2006 and 7. I had to get planning permission. They said you get nothing till you get your planning permission, and I did all that. And so it's the same with this. It has to comply with European Union law. And as the European Union law is based on the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union, which states a well-managed environment suitable for the well-being of the citizens of Europe shall be maintained, and the Lisbon Treaty had the same in it, careful, cautious approach to the environment in order to preserve a good environment for the citizens. There were the two times. And this was put before the Irish people. In many countries, the constitution did not state that you had to get a referendum. But in Ireland, De Valera, when he made his constitution, said only the Oireachtas, only the Dáil, the Seanad, agus an Uachtaráin, as the president, shall make the laws, and the courts shall decide on their constitutionality. We're unique. I don't think any other country has that. The result is that all of the EU treaties and all of the commitments Ireland gave were as a result of a referendum, and in the case of the Lisbon Treaty, we voted twice, because the first time we voted no, and they put it up again and they voted yes. And I studied the treaties and I recommended people to vote yes. And the Aarhus Convention was signed and all by the EU in 2007 about. The Irish government waited till 2012, but the SEA directive and the EIA directive and the Habitats directive and the Pollution Control directive were all brought in. The EIA, the Local Environmental Directive, came in 1985 and was updated in 2011 and 2014. The Habitats Directive was brought in sometime at the beginning of the millennia, and the Pollution Control Directive, I think, is 2007. Don't stick me to that. But the key to it is the SCA Directive was brought in 2004. Its number is 2004/42 EC, and this Article 2.3 says an environmental report and an environmental assessment must be prepared in respect of several industries, including energy. And they never did it. They ignored the whole thing, like building a factory with nothing, no plan, building a house with no plan. You do that, you'll be jailed. And yet the EU Commission and the Irish government decided, we know what's good, we're ploughing ahead with this. The reality is, if they went to do the assessment, they wouldn't be competent enough to do it. So I saw this, Pat Sword saw it, and we were aghast. Is that the word? Flabbergasted. We were enraged that what was promised me and us in the referenda was being taken off us by the Irish government. Enda Kenny, Bertie Ahern, all of those Taoiseach, those prime ministers did it. Varadkar's at it and Ryan's at it. They even went so far recently as to try to amend the Planning and Development Act to stop it, only to realise that this is a lot sounder. You can't stop a constitutional provision on which the people voted on. Okay, they went over to Europe lately. They met Ursula von der Leyen, and I'd say she had to tell them the hard news, folks. There's nothing we can do. Now, the point is, the European Investment Bank was dishing out billions for all kinds of junk, anything that the cowboys of industry, the people who couldn't make it doing proper business and got into this racket, and anything to keep them afloat, to dump the cost of their stupid projects on the people who pay bills, to destroy the environment, destroy the wildlife, make our businesses uncompetitive, drive our people away. They can't get jobs because we can't have industries, destroy all the things that we hold dear. And so Pat Swords always said, it's a pity we can't go in and challenge this in the European Court of Justice and block the European Investment Bank from spending money until they do the proper environmental assessments, with public participation, the right to take judicial reviews, and all of that. The problem was, several attempts were made, including myself. The High Court didn't want to know. Pat tried it, I tried it, Friends of the Irish Environment tried it. Got nowhere. We couldn't go on. Friends of the Irish Environment went to the Court of Appeal. They got nowhere. Nothing to do with this now. They went in on the SEA directive. They didn't go in on the Investment Bank directive, nor did I, nor did Pat Swords. So we're talking here about a challenge to the European Investment Bank only. But the other challenges were against actual infrastructure projects, the windmills and all that, on the SEA directive. So there are in effect the same. One says you have to assess this properly before you can build it or get planning permission. The other says you have to assess it properly before you allocate public funds to it, because the law says that it has to comply with EU law, and the EU law is the SEA directive, the Habitats Directive, the Pollution Control Directive. Right. That was it. We had no barrister. We tried getting barristers, didn't work. And I was praying, and we're praying. I used to think they're not too big into the prayer, but maybe I, like me, would be listened to. And all of a sudden, we discovered there was a barrister who had recently qualified as an adult student, and he was specialising in European law. So it seemed to fit like a hand in a glove. And Pat wasn't too long until he had met him. He took a challenge on another thing to do with that thing that was going on, and the barrister won, and he sued to get his expenses, and he got his expenses, 840 or that type of money. That made us think this man is good. So anyway, so we hired him. He did the initial stages, and then he did the application to get the case in, and we paid him there, and that's that 2,240, and now we need 2,500 plus VAT at 23% to finish it, to settle with him, give the man his due, and get it in. And we have only about a week left. Now, what is vital to understand is that a series of fortunate things came together. You know the way you can have a very bad run of luck. I play a bit of auction 15. I'm not a big poker man, but I play cards a bit. And sometimes your luck will be horrible. And if it changes, and you can identify that, you make a stack, your luck comes in, it goes in sort of waves. So I think our luck sort of came in. And as Pat Swords frequently says, good luck is when opportunity meets preparation, or preparation meets opportunity. I happen to have the old bank account with some remaining reserves from an earlier effort. We happen to find a barrister within 2 miles of here where I am. He proved himself with Swords' case. He's on this, and now I want to explain to you exactly what is happening. The first thing Pat did was to get our man to prepare a case for the Swedes. I presume the Swedes are financing that, and if they are, it's quite a lot. The Swedish groups against all this renewable nonsense. And he has one in there. I've given you the details before of it. I can post them underneath here, but I don't want to confuse you. That's separate. We're not involved in that. But the two will probably run together. The next was the Netherlands, Holland. There's a case in there, you find it on the Curia, T331 of 22, and there's another one, T344 of 22. These are Belgian groups who are going in full whack with our barrister to challenge the European Court. No, oh God, to challenge in the European Court the decision of the European Investment Bank to give public money to projects which do not comply with EU law. Do you understand that? Sweden is in. You can read their case. I'll post it underneath if you want. But the one you want to look for is the Netherlands. They had to agree to let us go in. Both Sweden and Holland are using our barrister because you couldn't get a barrister in Europe. Some of them aren't making too much money as it is. I don't know. It's irrelevant why we couldn't get a barrister. I don't waste time looking back. We got a barrister. The barrister did up the documents for the Swedes, and he did up the documents for the Dutch. And they're there online. You can read it yourself by searching the Curia for that case. Some of it will have non-English phrases, but you can wade through that all right. And you get the English version, it'll convert it. In the EU, all languages are converted to English or whatever you want. Now, the thing about it is that then we didn't have the resources, we weren't well enough feathered to take a separate case for Ireland. But then there is a process where you can go along as an intervention. The Swedes and the Dutch are an intervention. We're trying to intervene in the decision making of the European Investment Bank, used on the grounds that EU law is not being complied with. I hope you have that. And we are now going in sort of as a rider or as an associate. And this is true in Irish law as well. You can go in as a joiner. So for example, if my river here has been polluted by an industry up the road, we'd say it's not been polluted, let's be fair. But if it were being polluted and someone living upstream said, I'm taking a case, and they go to take a case in the court against this, I can apply to do a joiner under the rules of the court. I can be joined in that, and I can be allowed to plead my case. but I also would have to share the costs of it if I put the other side to cost and I don't win. So you get the idea. There is a process in international law where you can join. So what is essentially happening is this will be the number. We will not have a separate number. We will be going on as a rider to this, is that the word you use, or as an associate. Essentially, in plain man's language, the group people over wind will say, we are living here in Ireland, this is what we are experienced, this is our case. We see here in the Dutch case, we agree with that, we mightn't agree with that. In actual fact, that won't happen. We want to be associated with grounds 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7, or something like that. In reality, we'll be going along with them all. And as the same barrister compiled all of the documents and put so much huge effort into it, that's not a problem. We just simply go along. And that means that the European Court of Justice, when deciding, will be saying, well, now we have a Swedish case here. Oh, we have a Dutch, yeah. And the Irish are going in as an associate with it, or they're joining in it. Now we study the law. And what happens there is the Advocate General who studies the law and reports on his views of the case. You don't go in and have a big 3-day hearing. The Advocate General will make a decision when he gets all the written submissions, and he will point out what he thinks is the case. And in most cases, the European Court of Justice will go along with the Advocate General's legal view. So I'm very hopeful, considering that this court already ruled in case 2419 on the wind energy guidelines. So they'll have that then, and that means Ireland is in there as well, and we'll be named in this. And when somebody goes then, when these crowd break this, we can go back then and complain, but they can't break the rule of the European Court. I mean, that would mean if they gave money for this illegally and people invest in windmills, well, they're investing in an illegal project. And the problem of the court censuring the European Commission and the European Investment Bank, what they do, you create a constitutional crisis. They're hardly going to do that. So this will mean that we will no longer have to go in to the Irish High Court and plead all this. We will go into the Irish High Court and say, there's your judge, there's your ruling, here, read it, what you like with it, there it is. And there's no more pleading at all. And if they reject it and say, oh, there's nothing here, you can go to the Court of Appeal. You have only one simple ground. This is the law. And if they don't do that, you go to the Supreme Court and they can rule on it, or they can rule it back to the Court of Justice of the EU. In reality, it's quite likely, I think, that Sweden or Holland will not take this lying down if they try to best us on it. Now, I hope I've explained that. This is the situation, and this is going ahead after the court ruled on 2419, and it's now faced with ruling on court case C727 of 2002, and I'll write that down here. So this is a group that I would not be that fond of, but they're gone in there because they see all of this mad stuff going on. And they're saying, what's this going to do for the environment? What's this going to do for climate change? Nothing has been assessed. And they've gone in there. And now it's at the last stage. And the government is pleading, oh, it's just budgetary. It's just budgetary. Oh, sure, that's not. We don't need any SCA. We'll see how they get on. Now, I hope I've explained that, folks. What essentially this collection is for, it is to pay the legal fees and the fees of the court. Usually they're small fees. I'm not sure what they are. I don't know what they are. In my own case, I took one that was €500 in the High Court. And whatever that's to cover all that, plus a big lump of VAT, a big lump of VAT at 23%. Is to cover that. Our man won't work for nothing, and if he did, nobody'd respect him, and I wouldn't ask him to. He is working on this and doing great work. And a great thing about him, everything he does is approved by Pat Swords. He would send it to me, but I wouldn't read it, because if Pat thinks it's all right, I won't get involved. But I have had discussions with him on the SCA directive and some of the things we're getting up to, and he is aware of that. And of course, if groups eventually want to use him to fight these windmills, then he's a good choice. Now, the other thing about this case of ours, this case here, is that you don't need a solicitor. You don't need a barrister. All you need is a qualified lawyer. So Martin is infinitely placed to get it right. Pat Swords is there to watch what he does and get it right, correct anything that's right. And it's my job to do the financing. It's my job to raise the financing, and I'm well on my way to do it. And I will be telling you when we have it done. You'll be getting everything from me, and I hope you'll all feel a sense of ownership of this project. I am not prepared to let my country be destroyed. That's what it amounts to. And I feel that I was just happened to be in the right place to do the right thing. Folks, thumbs up. I hope I've explained that. We're trying to force the European Investment Bank to comply with the law before they give them anything. And that's going to be quite a challenge. Don't forget, in the United Kingdom, when they were in the EU, they did an SEA to build a town. And it was decided not to go ahead because government changed or something. And they had to do an SEA to take it off it. It's the plot of land that's the subject of the SEA. So our government should take the Irish Republic, its islands and its waters, and they should do an SEA for that plot of land. If they want to put windmills, that should be done for the whole country and done with everyone involved, fishermen and everything else. They're hoping now to spend billions on offshore wind, and that's another thing we look at it. I favour with this fund to get it over the line and get it done and stop. I don't favour letting people continue to contribute to us until we have something to spend it on. We might go a little over it, maybe €100 or something. There was 73 in it in the beginning, but I want to get that count done, the money paid to our barrister, and get a receipt done and dusted and report back to you. Folks, that's the case there again. I want to thank you very much. And again, if you want to give me a thumbs up or subscribe or whatever, this is separate video. I have my own channel. I have Realtor Educational Fake News, so I have to put this on that channel. You see, I'm using existing stuff there, but they're independent. This is a separate thing. You don't have to agree with me on a lot of my politics if you just want to preserve the environment and if you're in favour of the rule of law ruling in our lives, that they have to comply with the law that they got us to vote on. I've said enough. I tend to say too much. Thank you for listening. We'll see you back again. Bye bye.